So I was listening to a podcast today, and it was a financial literacy podcast, and it was wild. It was literally radical. It was the strangest financial podcast that I've ever listened to because they were saying so many things different than what I'm used to. Maybe that's why I thought it was wild. Maybe that's why I thought it was strange. It was radical. It was way out there because this guy was literally doing or saying or telling people to do things that other financial podcasters would just frown at. Now, he was on there with another person who was basically saying that she would like for everyone to have an emergency fund before they actually began to pay off debt, because the emergency fund would shield them from obviously life, right? And you would use this money obviously for true emergencies, and you would not have to pay interest on it because you're not borrowing this money as it is yours. You've saved it. It's your emergency fund. And this guy was just like, man, that's so crazy. Nobody could ever save 3 to 6 times their salaries. Nobody should do that. First of all, I'm pause right there because when you are saving for an emergency fund, you don't necessarily need to save 3 to 6 months of your salary. Yes, we say save for 3 to 6 months, but that's literally 3 to 6 months of your expenses. So if your salary is $3,000 and your expenses are $1,000, you're literally just saving for that $1,000, which hopefully would include all of your expenses, all of your bills, your rent, your groceries, your gas, everything. So that $1,000 will encompass everything. And obviously, this is just an example. So if your salary is $3,000, nobody is saying that if you want to save for a 3-month emergency fund to go ahead and save $9,000, but instead save $3,000 because you're saving $1,000 because that totals your expenses times 3. You're only trying to save for your expenses. You're not trying to save enough to cover your entire salary for that month. That's not what you're doing, right? And so I just want people to know, again, if you're saving for an emergency fund, you're saving 3 months. If your pay is $3,000 a month, you don't have to save the 3,000 times 3. $3,000 times 3 months. That's not what you're saving for. You're not saving that $9,000. You're saving whatever your expenses are. In this example, I gave an example of $1,000 for expenses times 3. $1,000 times 3 in order to get to your 3-month emergency fund. But either way, this guy was saying that it was unrealistic. People cannot save for an emergency fund. There's no way people would be able to save that kind of money. And literally, this was a financial literacy podcast. What this guy was actually saying was to use a credit card. So he was saying use a credit card in order to shield you from life. Use your credit card as an emergency fund, and to go ahead and pay off debt before even thinking about building an emergency fund. This was his take. Her take was, no, you need to at least save up for 1 month. At least save up for 1 month. And then go ahead and start paying off debt if that's what you want to do. But you should have a buffer because we don't want you having to add on more debt to what you already have and to pay interest on top of that. Now, what do I agree with? I definitely agree that everyone should have an emergency fund. People should have an emergency fund. You're not using a credit card as an emergency fund. You're not using payday loans as an emergency fund. You're not using other types of debt as an emergency fund because that's going to get you into a place where you don't want to be, which is farther in debt. You don't want to do that. You're literally saving up an emergency fund. You need to save up your buffer before you go ahead and attempt to do anything else. Now, if you are looking at the screen right now, I have built something that's called Levels to Financial Success. And the basic level, which is level 1, consists of budgeting, making sure that you have a concrete budget, a conscious spending plan, just a plan for how you're going to spend your money, right? And making sure that your income covers your expenses. So that's the most basic level. Then we have building, which is level number 2. That says to build up a 6-month emergency fund and then to work on your personal debt. Now, this says a 6-month emergency fund, but I agree that at times a 6-month or trying to build up a 6-month emergency fund can seem daunting. I really understand that. That could be truly hard for some people, but it is really important for you to, first and foremost, have that buffer between you and life. Number 2, make sure that you have money to spend in case of an emergency so that you do not get further in debt or get yourself back into debt, right? You don't want to have to go into debt. You don't want to have to borrow money that you're going to pay interest on. That is not something that we're doing anymore. So, while I agree that you do need a 6-month emergency fund, I do agree it can be a little bit of a challenge to get there. So, I do agree with the woman on the podcast who said first to work up to a 1-month emergency fund. So, if you have 1 month of your expenses built up, then that is something, right? If you are looking at this Levels to Financial Success, which you should see on your YouTube screen right now, and you're like, how can I ever get to 6 months? Start with 1. I mean, it's going to start with 1 anyway, right? In life, we start with 1. Then we move to 2. Then we move to 3. You need to get in the habit of saving. You need to get in the habit of having something saved. The funny part is I've always been a saver, but I just became an investor about 4 years ago. And once I started to invest my money little bit by little and seeing it grow and compound over time, I literally just want to put more. And I think that is how your emergency fund situation is going to go, right? You say, okay, it's going to be hard for me to get to the 6 months. So I'm just going to start with having 1 month in my head. I'm going to have a 1-month emergency fund. Then you start to build up that emergency fund. Once you start to see that money pile up, you're going to continue to want to see that money pile up. And as a result, I do believe that you're going to get more and more aggressive in your savings over time. You're going to try really hard. This is what I believe because this is what happened to me. I just wanted to keep investing. Anytime I spent anything, it was sick. It made me sick to my stomach. Literally, I hate to really just go around spending money. And I literally hate to spend it frivolously. And so once you see your savings start to grow, you are not going to want to stop. Then you're going to get into that habit. You're going to get into the swing of things. You're going to be trying to sell things in order to stack your money. You're going to be doing so much. But if you need to start at 1, like that is literally the starting point. Start at 1. Start at 1 and stop at 1. If that's how you feel. I just want you to do something. Do something. There's people who look at the 6-month emergency fund and say, oh, I can't get to the 6 months, and they never do a thing. Like, you're literally stopping before you start. You're not even doing a thing. And so what I want to say is that something is better than nothing. There's so many people around here walking around with nothing, walking around with nothing. Like, you're not even started. You didn't even start the first step. Start the first step. The first step is the first month. Make that your goal. Just say, I'm just going to build up a 1 month emergency fund. Make that your goal. Stop making excuses for why you can't get to 6 months and keep saying, oh, I'm never going to be able to get there. I'm never going to be able to get there. Start with 1. Because that's literally how you get to 6. That is on the path to 6. Starting with 1 is literally how you get to 6. 6 ones is how you going to get to 6. And I'm telling you, when you start, you're not going to want to stop. Start with 1 if you have to. Don't make excuses about why you can't get to 3 months, why you can't get to 6. Start with 1 if you have to. All right. So my name is Tahara. I am the Budget Coach. Please like, share, and subscribe to this video, or like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Like and share the video and subscribe to the channel, because I would like this information to get out to so many of us who don't know where to start with our finances. Okay? Again, Tahara, the Budget Coach, and start with a 1 month emergency fund.